There is one punch that you are never allowed to throw in combat sports.
Not because it's the most painful, but because it can kill you and almost nobody knows why. The most common misconception has to do with the brainstem. For centuries, people knew something was wrong with injuries to the back of the head. Ancient Roman gladiator helmets were designed to reinforce the back. Even in pre-industrial warfare, back-of-the-head shots were considered to be dishonorable. Relatively minor trauma could cause coma, paralysis, or death hours later. So when the boxing rules were being written, these strikes were banned almost immediately. Now we know the culprit was the brainstem. The brainstem controls breathing, heart rate, consciousness, and so damage here is obviously catastrophic. But here's where most explanations go wrong. Brainstem injuries will cause instant death or paralysis, but that's not what we see in the ring. In 2015, Pritchard Colon took many illegal blows to the back of his head.
And Colon still looks a little bit wobbly, doesn't he, Steve?
But he was able to get back on his feet and continue the fight.
Meaning his brainstem had not been destroyed, but something terrible had already happened. In the locker room, he collapsed. When he woke up 9 months later, he was never the same, unable to speak, walk, or ever box again. This exposes a flaw in our theory. See, most people assume that rabbit punches are deadly because they hit the brainstem, but the brainstem is actually very tough. You'd have to smash through the skull to even touch it. Punches rarely land with the power required to injure the brainstem. So if it's not direct brainstem destruction, then what is killing the fighters? First, we have to understand the real danger of knockouts. Most fighters get knocked out from hooks and uppercuts to the chin.
And something called the reticular activating system gets disrupted, and the brain briefly loses consciousness.
That's why knockouts look terrifying, but most of the time they're temporary. But back of the head shots don't work the same. The brain is relatively good at handling straight line forces,
But it cannot handle rotational forces because rotational forces create shearing stress, and shearing stress can tear blood vessels in the brain.
The most common fatal brain injury in boxing is a brain bleed called subdural hematoma. Small veins called bridging veins tear between the brain and its outer coverings. When you bleed normally, the blood flows out of the vessels. But since the skull can't expand, the bleeding slowly crushes your brain. You might seem fine at first, but collapse hours later. And again, this isn't rare. This is the leading cause of death after a knockout. And in fact, this is what we see in post-knockout injuries. But here's the key question. If rotation and bleeding can happen anywhere, why is the back of the head so much worse? Here's another factor. You don't see it coming. Because when you anticipate a punch, your neck muscles tense, your body braces, and that limits how fast your head moves. But a punch from behind, no bracing, no protective reflex, and the head snaps freely, causing a massive brain rotation.
But that's not all. The front of your head is built differently. You have facial bones, muscle, and fat that absorb impact. That's why the broken jaw can actually protect the brain. It works the same way as a car crumpling in a crash. The outside breaks so the inside can survive.
Ironically, the back of the head shots are only dangerous because of the skull that was designed to protect us traps us in a pool of our own blood.
The final reason is that the front and back of the head are different. Because of human anatomy, a hit to the front causes concussions, but a hit to the back will snap your head and tear the blood vessels.
Until researching for this video, I had no clue why this rule existed. And that's why some people say, why not legalize back of the head shots? I mean, fighters can learn to just defend them. But here's the scary part. It's not just a knockout. The result is brain bleeding, permanent disability, and sometimes death. But of course, what do you guys think?